Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Professor Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. Oh, I know you thought that I was an adventurer going to Africa to round up some animals to bring back to the El Paso Zoo. I'm dressed for a safari. Well, I do have a special guest today from the El Paso Zoo, but before I introduce him, I want to tell you a little story about the El Paso Zoo and this outfit that I'm wearing. In the year 2000, one of my friends named Roy Collins that taught government for us part-time and his wife Stephanie were volunteers with the zoo. And one day Roy called me and said that he was telling the woman in charge of the volunteers about me being a dance performer and was wondering if I could come and do a little routine for them, a little dance for them before their monthly meeting. So this lady called me. I wish I'd written her name down. It's lost in my memory. And so I said, yes. She said, you're a dancer? I said, well, I'm not good, but I'm fun. So I said, how much time? She said, 15 minutes. So I went that night that they had their meeting, did some soft shoe dancing with a cane, and I did meet to the music of Disney cat songs and some music from the musical Cats. We had a good time. We sat down for snacks. The lady in charge then said this to me: Professor Blevins, I had an ulterior motive for getting you here tonight. And I said, what is that? She said, you're kind of a celebrity in El Paso with these characters you do, and we want you to speak on our behalf for passing the quality of life bond issue because we want to double the size of the zoo. I said, I'm already supporting that. I know Carlos Ramirez, the mayor of El Paso, been on programs with him, and I definitely support this. I'm voting for the bond issue. So that's how this came about. She gave me this as a gift with my name on it, Professor Blevins, and made me an honorary zoo volunteer. Steve Marshall, the director of the zoo today, how does it feel to be sitting with an honorary zoo volunteer?
Well, I think it's great. Good to see you. Thank you for having me here. It's a great pleasure.
Well, I'm not sure how many animals we can round up to bring for your zoo. It's going to cost me a little more money than I have raised yet to go to Africa and get some of these animals. As you probably already know by now, I had Rick Lobello of your staff on my program a couple of years ago, 2011, I believe it was. And then he invited me to participate and read to children for Party for the Planet at that time. So we have a neat picture of us being there with the Party for the Planet. And that was about Earth Day.
Okay, it was, yes.
Okay. So that was the last time that we did. My wife's name is Shanna, and we participated in a lot of these. Another thing, this shirt and this hat got used by her a lot because working with deaf children and hearing impaired children, at least once a year, she and some of her colleagues would take children down to the zoo for their field trip.
Okay.
And before they would go, they would do a photo shoot with my hat and my shirt. These elementary school kids, the shirt went all the way to the floor. It looked like they were wearing a big dress or something. And so we had a great time when she was working in that particular area. And so now tell us a little bit about you, about your background. Are you a native El Pasoan? Where were you from originally? And did you work in other zoos before you came to ours?
Okay. Not a native El Pasoan, but this is what I tell everybody. Of course, the slogan goes, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could.
Good for you.
I say I got here as fast as I could 3 times because I'm originally from the Southeast, born in Birmingham, Alabama, and raised in East Tennessee. And I came out for graduate school just outside of Dallas, went back to the Southeast. During my career, I came out for the Texas State Aquarium the year after it was built in 1991, went back to the Southeast for another job, and then now this is the 3rd time to Texas for El Paso. So,
well, when I contacted you about being here, and in fact, Claire Rodriguez, assistant for this program, my assistant, and her husband, Philip Rodriguez, works with you. And she's told me so much about Philip, and she showed me on her cell phone a while ago him riding a tricycle around or something, a big tricycle running errands.
Right.
And she said he works in art and carpentry and works with the fountains and the water system and things like that. And so tell us a little bit about the staff that you have. He's the only one I've really heard about. Tell us about categories of staff that you have working for you.
Okay. Well, first let me comment on Phil. He's a great artisan and craftsman. He's actually an exhibit technician.
Okay.
And we'll kind of get more into that as your conversation here with me goes on about the mission of the zoo and the fact that it is an illusion of something much more important, and that is, of course, natural resources and living creatures.
You mean
out
some of
in
the
wild.
facades are fake?
I'm afraid so. But it's a great question about staff and careers, because usually when we get a question about career days for students, everybody's thinking about animal care professionals or keepers. But if you have an interest in the mission of the zoo, which is stewardship for the planet, you can be a carpenter at the zoo, you can be an accountant at the zoo, you can be a maintenance technician at the zoo, an IT specialist, you can be an educator, you can be a cashier, and there's just all kinds of career opportunities in a career like the zoo.
Don't you and your staff fall in love with certain animals?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody's got their favorite, and again, there's just that pull that human beings have toward other living creatures, and it's really fulfilled when you work at the zoo every day.
Now tell us about operating a zoo in a desert environment like ours. Is this a special problem?
Well, it certainly is a challenge, but of course there's a challenge operating a zoo in Buffalo, New York, with snow cover, and again let's say in Georgia, where there's a lot of rain and humidity. But it allows us to do things that other zoos in other parts of the country just can't do, and that is, we're showing animals like we can do animals from the plains of Africa, and they're perfectly happy here year-round. We have an Asian wild horse species that can handle and does handle the wide range of temperatures from below freezing here to 106 degrees, because that's what they're used to in the deserts of Asia.
Do you have a particular animal that you most favor working with?
Well, actually, one of my favorite animals at the zoo is Dakota, our golden eagle, and it's one of our education ambassadors. In fact, we actually are able to have Dakota, this golden eagle, on a fist, trained to our fist like a falconer of old. And you have to have a special permit in the zoo world to actually have a golden eagle. We're one of 5 zoos in the U.S. that have a special permit that uses this golden eagle in an education program. Because of my background, back when I was a tadpole in the business and working with birds of prey, I was actually on the team that helped take care of Dakota when he first came into the zoo.
About 15 years ago, Shannon and I were at Dollywood,
Okay.
and they had a tremendous exhibit of eagles there.
They do. Golden eagles, they have a center for the preservation of American bald eagles there.
And you've been there?
I have been there, and those people are very well known in bird of prey conservation.
Another thing we saw there was cats, trained cats, walking tight wires and doing all kinds of things. And we thought cats couldn't be trained.
Oh, well, they can. It's just a matter of positive reinforcement. Of course, most people don't have the patience to try to train their house cat. And also, there is a scientific field that believes cats really aren't domesticated anyway. They just tolerate us.
Right, exactly.
But again, most animals in the zoo can be trained to a certain extent again. And we do that not for circus tricks, but to help us with our veterinary care. Again, imagine a 450-pound lion that begins to limp. In the old days of zoos, we would have to guess its weight, mix up a dart, put the anesthetic in, wait for the animal to go to sleep, then get our hands on it, see what the problem is. Stressful for everybody. Now, through positive reinforcement, we simply train the animal to rear up on a protective barrier and allow us to see if there's a thorn or a cut or take an x-ray through positive reinforcement and training.
Now, some of them have very big hands or paws, don't they?
Very big. Absolutely big.
Do you ever have someone that you hire that you think they're going to be good at working with animals, but then you find out they're kind of afraid and the animal senses they're afraid, and then you have to reassign them or something?
You know, it isn't so much that they're afraid of the animals, because again, safety is the #1 concern at the zoo, and these are carnivores who look at you as dinner.
Right.
So we try to go through a double lock system and things like that. Mostly what we find with the animal care professionals, if they're not real up on what the job is, just the amount of work that it takes, and really the dedication.
Right.
Because we still have to do the old style keeper stuff. We still have to feed the animals, clean up from their poop, make sure their exhibit is fine. But the job is also expanded into animal behavior and assisting with the medical care and the preventive care and things like enrichment, where we actually actively take a part in the animal's cognitive abilities and make sure that the animal isn't bored during the day.
So you're partly a psychologist.
We are. The animal care staff actually has to stay one step ahead of the animal and create puzzle boxes for delivering food and treats so that the animals can solve problems and spend the time. Because again, as you know, an animal spends most of its time in the wild searching for food or staying away from predators and finding a mate. We provide those protections and things for them. And if we just shove the food in front of them in a bowl, they would be finished in 5 minutes and have a lot of time on their hands.
Now,
so we broadcast food out into their exhibit. We also put the food in puzzle boxes for them.
recently we had a bond issue,
Yes.
quality of life. How does the zoo fit into that?
Well, actually, let's go back to your story of the 2000 bond. It was a great thing for the citizens to vote the El Paso Zoo a bond in the year 2000 to the tune of about $34 million. In fact, I got here just as the last of those projects were coming on board in 2007, 8, 9, and we opened the African exhibit in 2010. We're very, very fortunate and very well supported by the citizens to be on the next bond initiative for $50 million.
Okay. Give us a telephone number and a website number if you wish, because I know you're always looking for volunteers and you're always looking for money.
Right. So 521-1850 will get you right to the zoo. We're always looking for volunteers and any other support that the community can give us.
Tell us about special projects going on through the year or programs going on through the year. I know with Rick Labello, it was the Earth Day event.
Right.
Tell us some others that regularly come up that the public needs to know
Okay.
about.
Well, actually our biggest, highest attendance weekend, and that shouldn't scare anybody away from the zoo, there's plenty of room, is actually Boo at the Zoo. It's a family celebration of Halloween. The kids get candy. They walk around the zoo in a completely safe environment during the day. And we've really gotten a huge outpouring of support from the community for that event, and people really respond. The kids dress up in their outfits and they come out to the zoo over that weekend. We also do an elephant festival, so we celebrate elephants and talk about the tragedies happening in the wild with elephant-human interactions, and 90% of the time the elephant loses. There is a crisis in Asian and also African elephants. Right. We have a bug awareness, which is a really fun thing to do. We show all kinds of different bugs native to this area and exotic bugs. And we also have a cooking demonstration, and one of the things that really goes is the cricket cookies that we cook for people.
Cricket cookies.
Cricket cookies, yes.
Oh my goodness. When I was young, I loved to play with bugs.
Okay.
My mother worried about me because
Right.
I caught tarantulas and all kinds of things. I played with horned lizards.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorite cups, horned
Yes.
lizard. Now an endangered species.
It is. And you know, when I first came here, I knew what I was sort of getting into, being a natural historian that I am, and I was looking forward to the horny toad, or the Texas horned lizard. I was out on my mountain bike one of the first months that I was here, riding with someone who's from El Paso. I said, "Look, there's a horny toad." And he said, "You know, you just don't see those anymore." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "When I was a kid here, you saw them everywhere, and now you don't see them anymore." And I said, "That should mean something."
Tells us about our environment,
It
what
should.
we're doing to our environment.
Absolutely.
And we hear it, and it makes national news about a cougar or something finding its way into
Right.
town.
Right.
And people say, why is this? Well, it's because we have invaded their habitat.
Yes, we have.
We have grown into their habitat.
Yes. And you know what that does for a community, though? If we understand the natural components of a community, it just makes the community richer. Because again, you know, you go to another part of the country, there'll never be a cougar that walks through downtown, or there'll never be a horny toad found on your front porch,
Right.
because they're just not part of that community. But if we try to erase everything like burrowing owls and ringtail cats and hawks and owls, this is a much poorer community for that.
Okay.
And that brings me to one of the most important parts of this next bond initiative, and that is we're going to transform one part of the zoo into a Chihuahuan desert encounter experience.
Okay. Well, I grew up close to Lubbock, went to college there, went back to teach at Texas Tech at one time for a few years. And one of our favorite places to take our children was Prairie Dog Town.
Yes.
They have a big prairie dog town there.
Right.
Do you have any prairie dogs?
We do have a prairie dog exhibit, and we just got one of the most endangered mammals on the planet, a black-footed ferret. Now, at one time, these ferrets' range was from northern Mexico all the way to the Canadian border. I mean, probably even before it was Canada. but huge, expansive prairie dog towns in that range from northern Mexico to the Canadian border. And living in among the prairie dogs was an apex predator of these prairie dogs called the black-footed ferret. It is a ferret species of the weasel family, only one found in North America, and it is an exclusive North American species. And at one time in the mid-'80s, the early '80s, we were down to 12 animals on the entire planet. So these animals are more rare than giant pandas. Now, giant pandas get a lot of press, but the black-footed ferret has had a resurgence because of zoos and the federal government, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, breeding these animals. Now there's about 600 of them, and we're now releasing them back into their original habitat, and El Paso Zoo has a part to play in that.
Okay, I have a big question about crisis at the zoo. You remember we had a big flood in 2006?
Yes.
And then we had a big freeze a couple of years ago.
Yes, we did.
How did you deal with the crisis?
Well, you know, as a matter of fact, the 2006 flood was before my time. I actually saw it on the news, but the zoo was not inundated by any floodwaters at that time.
But the freeze did hit.
The freeze hit us hard. We probably lost about $250,000 worth of plants and a lot of burst pipes, and the staff went to extreme measures to make sure that the animals were kept warm during that time, because as you know, the buildings around here just aren't built for that.
Right. Well, they're to be commended.
Oh, they're always to be commended. You know, and we get some flack from the so-called animal rights extremists, but I'm very, very clear with my staff that I believe that my staff are animal rights extremists, because 7 days a week, 365 days a year, they go to extreme measures to care for these animals.
And some of these would go extinct if you did not have zoos that are protecting them and conserving them.
Absolutely, and reintroducing them back into the wild.
Let's talk about conservation.
Okay.
A little bit of that. What about El Paso's environment? How do you get out there and talk to school children and others about the different aspects of El Paso's environment related to the zoo?
Okay, well, we talk about how unique the environment is and the fact that the places around the planet are very different. Actually, the Chihuahuan Desert, which is 2/3 in northern Mexico and 1/3 in the United States, is the most diverse desert biome on the planet. And we get that specification simply because of the altitude changes. Most deserts are of one altitude or the other. So these changes. So it's a very unique environment here, and we're able to tell people that if you're driving along and you see a burrowing owl nest and a burrowing owl sitting there, you're not going to find that in other parts of the country. And we tell them how unique the environment is for them.
How do you deal with sensitivity training with your staff with regard to some of these animals? El Paso made national news, international news a number of years ago about mistreatment of an elephant that was later taken somewhere else.
Yes.
You weren't living here, but you heard about that.
Absolutely.
Tell us about working with your staff and sensitizing them to some of these situations.
Well, you know, that was a part of our history. It isn't a part of a history that the El Paso Zoo is proud of by any means, but we did respond to that and react to that, and we have a whole new elephant program. We have one, actually, we're being commended. We've actually been commended by elephant sanctuaries for what a good job that our elephant program is. So again, we've gone through a transition, and everybody at the zoo understands that, that we don't make an animal do something. We don't use punishment as negative reinforcement. We only use positive reinforcement at the zoo.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your gift shop.
Well, we had a great gift shop, and what we found is, as we've made the zoo better through time, with, again, the support of the citizenry, we found that the stay time is longer. So when I first got to the zoo, the stay time at the zoo was maybe an hour and a half, the type of experience that you could have. Now we're surpassing 3 hours. And what we found is that people want to invest in their visit with a souvenir or with support, and they can find that in the zoo gift shop.
Okay. What about advertising the zoo?
Well, you know, there's never enough advertisement money for us to go up against the Coca-Colas or the car companies or something like that. But we do try to get the word out about the zoo. Zoos in the United States see about 70% of a regional attendance, and about 30% of people come from out of town. It's really a little bit different for aquariums because there's not as many of those and there's a higher price for those. But we actually see about that, and we had a record attendance last year of 350,000 people visiting the zoo.
Wow. Now you're getting some bond money.
Yes.
How are you going to use that? What kind of things are you going to develop, or what would you like to see develop
Right.
at the zoo that's not there now?
Well, we have a master plan. It was very professionally crafted by our staff with a consultant. So we were very inclusive when we said, what do you know we need and what do people tell you that we need at the zoo? We're not going to go outside of our perimeter fence like we did for the last bond, but we are going to be addressing some extremely old sections of the zoo. We've got 2 sections of the zoo that are over 50 years old. So those are going to come down and we're going to come back with brand new exhibits. So let me see if I can pull you through some of this $50 million that we're going to use. Okay. So $4 million is going to go toward an area at the entry to the zoo. We're going to have a special events pavilion, and we're also going to have a wildlife theater where we'll have contracted animal presentations. Another thing we're going to do, we're going to spend about $4 million in Asia. Asian exhibit is about 15 years old. It's time for a facelift for Asia, and we're going to bring in some new animals like Komodo dragon, red panda, and things like that. One of the next things that we're going to do, we're going to spend about $6 million in the African section. We're going to bring in new restrooms and new animal exhibits, and it's going to be a real improvement for the zoo. We've got about $12 million of what we're calling zoo-wide support, and that's just things like picnic tables and garbage cans and sidewalks and graphics, all the things that just make an experience that much better. And the big crowning jewel that we have on that is going to be a $24 million investment in North and South American section of the zoo, which will bring us penguins and squirrel monkeys and flamingos, but will also bring us this Chihuahuan Desert immersion exhibit of walking through a series of arroyos and seeing exactly what the El Paso region has to offer as far as jackrabbits and Harris hawks and jaguars and mountain lions and snakes and lizards and coati. It's going to be exciting.
Wow, wow. Now let's take comment cards.
Okay.
People turn in comment cards and you hear people verbally giving you
Yes.
comments. What kind of things have they been asking for?
Well, the main comment that we get, actually, if I may digress slightly, and that is how clean the zoo is. You know, people really expect that, and the experience of the zoo is a whole experience now. The grounds look absolutely stunning. They're clean, the restrooms are clean, the food is of a high quality. That's the comment that I get most of the time.
Okay.
What people would like to see more of is, of course, more animals. And I think that we're going to deliver that. Like I said, we're going to take some of those old exhibits down and we're going to bring exhibits back up. Sometimes, like for the Indian bear, it'll just be a new exhibit for the same animal. But then in conjunction with that, in the same area, we'll bring in South American penguins.
Wow, I'm excited. One time my wife comes in and she says, we're going to the zoo to hear our granddaughter Taya Rose, to play the piano.
Okay.
I said, are you serious? Yes. The music teacher has gotten permission. They have a little picnic area or something, and we're going to go down and listen to some of her students play the piano. Do you still do some programs like that?
You know, we do, because again, our mission is to be family oriented and to deliver an experience. Now we try, of course, to round that experience out with the whole message of stewardship for the planet. But we find that piano recitals, people appreciate that at the zoo.
Tell us anything else that I've overlooked that you would like for us to know about.
Well, one of the most important things that you need to know about, and as a citizen here and a community leader, you should be extremely proud of, is that the El Paso Zoo is taking a very strong leadership role in an environmental crisis, and we've actually developed a smartphone application, a smartphone app, that will give consumers a direct access to making a positive change for orangutan survival, Asian elephant survival, and tropical survival.
How can they do that on an app?
Well, there's 3 things. First, you have to understand that there is a environmental crisis out there, and it's because of palm oil. And some people call it conflict palm oil. What it is companies are going into rainforest areas, habitat for highly endangered animals, and they're destroying the rainforest and building palm oil plantations. Now, palm oil is a food additive. It's also found in things like hand lotions and lipsticks and shaving cream. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. We can't track safely grown palm oil currently. So what the El Paso Zoo is stepping up to the plate and saying is that we need to stop using products that use palm oil. It's very difficult to read the little package on everything to see what the ingredients are. So the El Paso Zoo, with the support of the Zoological Society, has developed an app with a local app designer so that you can scan a product's barcode and there's either applause and a smiling orangutan face on your phone that says this product is palm oil free, or if it has palm oil in it, there's a sound of a chainsaw, and it says this product has palm oil. This is the most important part. The choice is yours. Okay? Either buy this product and contribute to this disaster, or choose another product. Now, we're also saying that you can be brand loyal, because there's a hand lotion product, a hand lotion brand out there. The maximum strength has palm oil, but the regular strength doesn't. So you're telling companies, I'm leaving this on the shelf. Your shareholders will not get a dividend because of your contribution to this disaster, but I am going to buy your product that doesn't have palm oil.
Wow.
It's exciting.
Oh, that is exciting.
So all people have to do if they have an iPhone is go to the App Store and put under the search palm oil scanner, and we'll come up. Make sure it's the scanner, because there is another palm oil app out there that just talks about sustainable shopping, which we really have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Or you can go, if you have an Android, you can go to that application source and do the same thing. It's very easy to do, very fun to use.
Last thing, we have just about 4 minutes left.
Okay.
Is you're part of city government.
Yes, we are.
Right. How is this working relationship between the city government and the zoo? It's been pretty good since Carlos Romero was mayor, right?
Well, we've always gotten support from City Council. They do understand that we're actually one of the biggest shows in town, so to speak. 350,000 people a year.
Right.
You know, if you add up, and again, we love the Art Museum, and we love the History Museum, and we love all the museums in town, but if you take all their attendance and add that to the attendance at the state park, it's just slightly over half of the people who come to the zoo. So we get a lot of support from City Council and the city mayor.
So you're you're a very real part of tourism.
Yes, we are.
In El Paso.
30% of our attendance is tourism.
And local participation, schools bringing children down there.
About 30,000 school kids a year.
30,000 kids a year.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a lot of support.
And some of them get turned on to animals, caring for them. Some become veterinarians. Some get into the zoo field itself.
Right. And the majority of them just become better citizens of the planet.
That's great.
Well, the most important thing, of course, is come and support the zoo. Your attendance is massively important to us because although the city does support us through a general fund allocation, we also pay for our operation out of our gate revenue. So it's very important to come often, bring as many people as you can. It's extremely affordable, and so is a family membership that you can buy also.
Related to that is the transportation there. The buses come through on a regular basis?
There's a bus stop right outside of the zoo, and we encourage you to do that.
Okay, great. And you're close to the interstate, not too far off
We
the
are.
interstate?
We're right across the street from the Coliseum, so we're very centrally located. Again, that's the best thing that you can do is come and enjoy and really buy into our mission, which is to reestablish the connection with nature. We're not telling you you need to establish it to begin with. We're telling you that you need to understand that you already have a connection to nature.
Right. And we shouldn't just go once a year.
No, you should come early in the morning, late in the afternoon, different seasons of the year. Even on the outside chance that it may rain, come in the rain. The animals enjoy it.
And we're in the range of other fine zoos.
Yes, we are.
Albuquerque and Tucson and other places.
And there's a zoo in Alamogordo that's also accredited.
Oh, that's right. Even in Alamogordo. So we want the public to know all about the zoo, and so they don't just need to talk to me. They need to contact you.
Yes, they can do that.
We've already given the number, and we hope they'll do that. Well, what a great program we've had. Steve Marshall, right?
Yes.
Director of the El Paso Zoo. We're glad that Steve is here, and he's educating us, enlightening us about the whole planet. Thanks for watching Perspectives El Paso. I'm Leon Blevins.